for a reset. All progressives, including those with a Congress orientation, must reinvigorate the so-called old values and reassert those values. Anti-democratic tendencies must be eclipsed by a commitment to national interest and to public service. This epidemic of promoting oneself and accumulating wealth through patronage and authority within the state must be anathema to genuine democracy. Let us briefly look at the 70s and 80s. The NIC was relaunched in 1971. As the late Farooq Mir said, our intention was to fly the Congress flag and the Freedom Charter within the country. It was the only arm of the Congress movement that was not banned. The 70s marked the emergence of the Black consciousness movement, a period of intensified mobilization. Trade unions were activated, student campuses were alive and active. There were initiatives from the progressives and Congress throughout the country to set up different types of organizations in order to both mobilize people and to confront the apartheid system. These organizations eventually formed the United Democratic Front. By the late 70s, the first campaigns against organs of apartheid, like the LACs, were extremely successful, and later the puppet SAIC and the tricameral system. This was combined with the armed struggle, building the underground, and international mobilization against the apartheid system. So also began the process of linking struggles around local grievances, rentals, housing, workplace issues, facilities, and the larger political disenfranchisement. By the early 80s, there was an emerging convergence between the local and national challenges to lay the basis for the Release Mandela campaign and the launch of a non-racial internal political leadership. The formation of the United Democratic Front in 1983 and COSATU in 1985 made a huge contribution to the intensification of the internal struggles. The underground of the ANC and the SACP were well entrenched and widespread in our communities and organizations. Activists were a part of a union, movement, or a social organization at one level, but also members of the underground at the same time. Today, our task is, if I may humbly suggest, to advance the values of genuine democracy, of a democratic culture, and to ensure that the country progresses in the right direction, that its institutions of democracy, created by the Constitution, are made state capture proof. We cannot again have a national prosecuting authority, certain arms of law enforcement, and the Public Protector's Office recaptured for abuse by those whose only intent is to fill their own bank accounts. Democracy will not survive on its own. Democracy must be constantly secured and enhanced. In many parts of the world, democracy is being undermined by right-wing populism, massive inequality, identity politics, geopolitical tensions, and authoritarianism. The super-rich are imposing an inordinate influence on democracy. Democracy must be entrenched, and more work must be done among society to own and defend it. Integrity and ethical conduct in our politics appears to be sadly declining. Populism seemingly represents the interests of the majority of South Africans, but actually represents the interests of just a few. Those that are active in either political, social, or non-governmental fields must all contribute to working in the public and national interest as opposed to self-interest. Further, we must draw a clear line between public funds and resources and private resources. Public funds must be spent to improve the standard of living of the poor, their upward economic mobility, and to build an inclusive economy. Yet what we have is a plethora of extractors, particularly at a local level, tenderpreneurs, extortionists, and mafias. There are many lessons from our past. Now is the time for those that are progressive, politically and socially active in the non-governmental field to come together to ensure that we build consensus around a common platform of progressive politics, not focus on ourselves, but rather on what we can do for the majority of our people, and improve the standard of living of South Africans expeditiously and ethically. Let us open a new chapter on united progressive mass mobilization and campaigning which builds national unity, social cohesion, and a new optimism and determination to build a better South Africa. Thank you for the opportunity to make this contribution to the celebration of the 130th anniversary today.
You can get a